Hello and welcome back to Rethinking Intelligence. I am your host, Cindy Dickman. And as always, I'm excited with every um, guest that I have on. But today, I'm really excited to really bring in a completely different conversation than I've had before. And our guest is Miles Bugby. Welcome, Miles.
Thank you very much for having me, Cindy. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. I want to just give the listeners a little bit about you in case they don't know who you are. Miles, a pro tennis player. He's a high-end luxury model. He has acted with Ryan Gosling. He has a psychology degree. He's a photographer, son, brother, friend, world traveler, pastry lover, and exercise aficionado.
How you started, you know, started with tennis player, and for me, that has been my identity through my life. I started sport as a young child, and tennis was the one thing that really kind of captivated me and was something that I dreamt of doing as a career. And I think that's, still the child within me is that still holds on to that, and I still see myself as this tennis
Yes.
player athlete, even though, I stopped it 14 years ago. Tennis is
Mhm.
still a huge part of my life. And I think that fundamental side it will never leave me.
Mhm.
I just then have to pivot into the new ventures that I do. But
Mhm.
using all that I learned as an athlete and as a tennis player to kind of become better with what I do, as a model or as an actor, as a
Mhm.
photographer, whatever it is, that creative side, I use all the things that I learned as an athlete, and I think it benefits me in every aspect that in my life, really.
Where I met Miles was actually on a shoot with my son. I got to see you firsthand doing your craft and what you bring to it. And and when we were talking, identity came up. We always ask people when we meet them, like, what do you do, or how did you get into this? And that seems to be the identity that we connect with that person. And sometimes it's really hard to see them a whole person beyond that. And in our brief conversations, you started expanding on that identity of like who you are and not being pigeonholed as one thing or another thing. And so I wonder if you can speak a little bit to, because you have so many different pieces to you, and kind of at any one time, you are just being seen from one aspect.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting, observation when we were speaking about it. I think what first came up was like, you asked me, is this your full-time thing? Is this what you do?
Mm.
And so, for me, it is, that is exactly what I was doing. We're shooting a commercial,
Mhm.
and it's been an exciting kind of second part of my life, really. Like I've already said, sport was
Mm.
my main thing. Um, and to be able to go into this new thing has been very exciting. But when we go back to identity, when people ask me, and this is where we went with it, it was like,
Yeah.
"So Miles, what do you do?" And I find it sometimes quite difficult to answer, not because I don't know
Yeah.
what I do, because I know it's more the reaction of what
Mhm.
people perceive. So I find if I answer it, oh, I'm a model, which to be honest, that is really where I'm making most of my money is as a fashion model. I get judged very quickly. And so for me, again, depending who I'm speaking to, but as far as, the general public, you say you're a model, you get judged on different levels. It's either they think, okay, you've had an easy life, you've had a genetic lottery and you've been given everything, and they think that you just expect everything to be handed to you on a plate. One thing. The other thing is, they think you've got nothing in between the ears. So that's also not ideal. So they're like, okay, well,
Yeah.
this obviously not really switched on. I don't really want to have a conversation with this person. And they just don't
Yeah.
give you much. So there's not that much respect there. I think
Actually, that's what stuck out to me. How hard to be in a profession when you know how bright, capable you are, and you are judged by what you are currently doing just because it appears to people it may come easy and you
no,
don't have to
100%.
work at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. And it's don't get me wrong, there's times you know, I'm very realistic about things, and I look in what models and myself, we get to do, and I know we're very lucky, and it's a fantastic life, and
Mm,
I I look at other professions, and I'm like, I'm so thankful that I'm not having to, you know, go down that road, and you know. But at the same time, for people to be so fast to judge someone, I think's not good. And that's one thing that I know I will never do. I treat
mm,
everyone, whoever I meet, with the complete respect, whether,
yes.
it's, a homeless man on the road side of the
Hmm.
street to, the most famous person in the world. Like, I, for me, they're the same people. So we're all human. Think everyone deserves that respect. Now, you know, going back to the identity and how people perceive it, when you say you're an athlete, when I'd be like, oh, as a tennis
Mm,
player, again, you get a completely different respect because people look at it as like, wow, that's a very difficult thing to be able to do. In my opinion, probably the most difficult sport in the world. And to play at a high level is very hard. Now, they then look at that as like, well, to be able to do that, you have to have all these different attributes. You've got to be hardworking. You have to have a great mindset. You have to distant and all these, very positive things, which is also very true. But, I've then taken a lot of what I've learned from that into
mm,
everything I do now. Um, so I just think people are more aware of maybe that
mm.
kind of life, or as an athlete, it's I guess more in your eyes, and compared to say being a model. I guess maybe people don't see it; they just see the glitz and glam, right? So they just are like, oh, that looks easy.
Yeah. Or maybe
You
it's even more relatable. I've found in my work that as soon as you go into like a realm of
Mm.
that where it can't be relatable with someone, they feel
Yeah,
immediately kind of threatened and they shut down. And so it becomes a negative. Athletics is very relatable.
yeah,
But when you,
most of us grow up doing it, right? Whereas,
yeah, absolutely. So
I
you can
completely
relate to that, but modeling, it's like,
yeah, it's very alien to most people, I think.
mhm.
So now I feel like it's a lot more, I don't know, a lot more people think they're a model, right? There's Instagram, for example,
That
social
is
media.
true. That is
Everyone,
true.
everyone now has a platform, and they are,
Mm,
doing their own content creation. And, there's a lot of brands out there that are using these content
yeah.
creators. So I do feel like
That's interesting. Yeah.
a little bit of a shift. I still fundamentally, maybe it's just, I think if I was to say maybe to
Yes.
the younger generation, I'm a model, it's probably looked at maybe a bit different to maybe my
Mm,
generation. That's
mm.
also a possible cause, but I guess I need to have a few more conversations with the younger guys.
That's right.
Maybe I'll find out. Yeah.
There is something I feel that's in our culture. It's only really valuable if you had to overcome something or if it's difficult. There's so many things that you bring from that world, the athletic world, into what you do now. It's not that it's difficult, but what you do now, I couldn't just step into your world and knock it out of the park.
Right.
Right?
I,
And so what are those things you bring with you?
I think, as growing up as an athlete, you had to learn that you have to put in the practice, and so you can't expect to turn up and win. It just isn't, it's not feasible. And it's the same with everything that I do now. It's like I can't expect to just rock up um to set and do everything without having to kind of put in a little bit of work behind it. For example, I still train like an athlete now. I shoot a lot of underwear and swimwear. I can't not go put in the work. There's a little bit of that
Mhm.
side of things, which, funny enough, that's what's been quite nice as a transition from tennis to what I'm mostly doing now, is that I'm still, living that athlete life. I'm still training hard. I'm not um and I struggled actually when I first stopped tennis. And I think we talked about this as well. It was like really well, got pretty depressed. I really didn't know what
Yes,
to do when I stopped tennis. I kind of was lost, and I that's when we talked about identity and how I felt like I'd lost that
absolutely.
identity because that's all I'd known myself as. And then going into this new world, I was like, well, you know, who am I really? I had to kind of accept that, okay, I've got this new stage of my life, but I'm not going to let go of that identity as an athlete because that is always going to stay with me. To accept that and be like, okay, that's not gone. Now hold on to that and lean into it, use it as a part of me, and that is it's me. Like everyone knows me as a tennis player, or was a tennis player, whatever it was. But ultimately, they know I'm an athlete. And then the other stuff comes on top of that, and it has shaped me. And I think, like I said, when I first stopped tennis, I kind of wanted to just focus on the modeling. I thought, okay, this is what I need to do, and
Mhm.
I need to go do all these different shoots. But then I forgot
Yeah.
the thing that really meant a lot to me, and that was being healthy and just going and training, doing big things, and it kind of helps my mind more than actually anything else. And I have to do that, I try and do that most days still. Let's get to the gym.
There are these like different pieces, like the modeling and the athlete and the tennis, but your true identity is you love being healthy. You
Yeah.
love being physically fit and active. And so it's like getting down to that core identity where you're able to carry that with you no matter what you are doing at any given time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, even when I was a tennis player, like when I really broke it down to,
Mm.
oh, I'm a tennis player, actually, my identity was more, I'm a physical beast. I would know that I'd go into a tennis match knowing that I was physically fitter than pretty much anyone out there. And that's how I felt like, because I just pushing myself in that realm. Like, with all the other athletes and tennis players I'd be training with, they would know that. They'd be like, oh, Miles is an absolute crazy person. Like I'll just push myself. I've always had that from a young age. I used to do a lot of middle distance running. Steve Prefontaine, fan, even though that was a bit before my time,
Yeah.
he was an amazing, amazing runner. And for me, I loved, you know, his mentality and the quotes that I'd seen when I was doing the running and he would just push it harder than anyone. He would be like, I know that guy's hurting and I will be able to take more pain than he can. And that's kind of how I would honestly think pushed me. And that's kind of how I've always been with everything I've done.
What we were talking about, like what we are doing is our identity, but you being that physical beast,
Yeah.
that is who you are. That's your being. And being able to identify that early on so that you can totally shift your external doing, but still carry that same thing over.
And I think that was honestly what kind of propelled me into that depression period of my life was
Mm.
because, my last year in tennis, I was injured,
Yeah.
tendinopathy in my knees, and I was out for a whole year. And so that really took my identity away because it was like, well, I'm no longer this, physical machine. And I really struggled with that. And
Mm.
then I came back, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I was playing fantastic. And then I pulled my hamstring and it kind of propelled me into another cycle of that of being like, I don't understand, how I'm doing everything right, fittest I've ever been. And then this happens. And I just was really deflated. Yeah, that's then when I came over to LA to see my friends and kind of got exposed to, I guess Hollywood and that kind of life. And I was like, okay, well, this looks a little exciting, and something
Mm.
new. after that, and since my body's recovered, I still use that as I still know that. So I just love pushing myself. I think when I moved over from tennis to the modeling thing, I problem to start with was I didn't really have any direction, right? So it seemed exciting for me, something new. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to just walk into this and see how it goes. And everything looks exciting. And, I thought I was just going to work lots. And I was lucky to start with. I had quite a few jobs and this was great. And then it was when that stops, which is the norm in this industry. It can, it comes up in waves.
Yes.
And I got to a point where, I had a really quiet month and I was like, oh wow, well, what do I do now? And I had to figure out, okay, what is it within me that gets me going what I love? And that took me back to my roots, going to the gym. And I had to like just be busy. I find that I've always been active and busy. So that is, I have to do that. I then also learned, okay, well, I can do that, but then be proactive by looking to work with photographers and do test shoots
Mhm.
or, create something. And yeah, and it's kind of gone over the years. I've just tried to be more creative with everything that I do, whether it be, you touched on my photography, which I've ended up loving. Um, working with different directors and doing little shorts or whatever it is, trying to do these little pieces, which keeps me busy, helps me grow, and yeah, that's kind of how I've dealt with it, I think.
Breaking away from that idea of what we do is our identity, but what is going to be on our tombstone when we die. We don't
Right.
list all the things that we do. We list the things of who we are, who are our being. Sometimes we just lose sight of that. When something changes, like for you, you had this massive shift. That would honestly probably tank a lot of people. You were able to say, like, what are the things that are actually me? What are my being? How can I, funnel that into other things? I will have to say, when we were on the shoot with you, we were getting ready to go back to our cars, and everyone was like, "Where's Miles? Where, where is he?" And where we were, there was like a beautiful sunset, and here you came running down the road. You're like, I had to capture it.
Yeah. No, I
And
know.
and I love it. So you know for yourself that you need to be like physically active. You need to be creating. And honestly, what better way to connect with creativity? It's like the hub of creative minds.
Absolutely, and that's why I've definitely been drawn to Los Angeles. I love it. For me, it's one of the cities that kind of has everything here for me.
If you were writing on your gravestone, not to be
Right.
morbid, but
Yeah.
what are those things that you would say define Miles, that no matter where you go, what job, who knows, you may still be modeling when you're 70 and 80. That would be phenomenal. But
Right.
if life chooses a different path for you by then, what are those things that you are like, no, this is my identity. This is my chosen identity that I'm going to take with me and infuse in everything that I do.
Yeah, I think actually goes back for me. This goes back to what you were saying, the doing and like what you've done compared to who you are type
Mm,
situation. I think everyone it's different for everyone. There's some people that would want all the
mm,
accolades. For me, it's not so
mm,
much that. I think it's more about me as a person. And I hope that I always would leave like a positive effect on them in a way of just, you know, I like to think I'm a good person, kind,
mm.
and for me that's the most important thing. I feel like, yeah, I've done some cool stuff, but there's it's nothing for me. There's always something better out there, right? So I'm always
Mm.
chasing the next thing. Um, and ultimately, I think what's hard is I never reached the heights I wanted in tennis at all, nowhere close. And I felt like, you know, I had the ability to go a lot further, but unfortunately things didn't line up and didn't happen. And there's still things, in my modeling career, for acting, all these things, a long way to go until I feel like I've fulfilled anywhere close to what I'd
Mm.
like to do. Um, so yeah, for me, I think rather than that, I just feel like I'm always going to be disappointed. I know that sounds maybe not the right
No.
mindset, but I always think that I always want more on that side of things. So I think, I wouldn't want people to remember me by my accolades. It's more of who I am. What about yourself?
Yeah, I actually I'll circle back, but I just say something in response to what you said
Yeah,
before
of
it
course.
leaves my mind. You appreciate your experiences, you appreciate where you have been, what has happened in your life, but you know that there is more. You know that you are capable of more. And it's always that like internal drive of the potential just never stops. And I feel like
Absolutely.
that's such a defining factor between those who just stay very nominal and
Mm.
those who become great or have these experiences that other people look at and are like, how are you getting to do that and not me? I think so much of it is that mindset of the best is seriously yet to come.
No, 100%. I think no, you've got to believe it and
Mhm.
want it. And yeah, no, I think I enjoy the process as well. I don't enjoy that and they expect it just to turn up. So yeah, I enjoy trying to find a way. It's like again, it goes back to honestly the tennis mentality where, when I was really competing, I'd find myself in a three-set battle or something, and I'd love that battle. I love that this person is pushing me and
Yes.
finding I'm gonna find a way to find myself to win this match. And I really loved it. I'd get probably extremely frustrated at times, and then I'd have to come back and find it. And it was a interesting battle. And then it wasn't until really the end of when I decided I'm going to stop, I found myself in a three-set battle, and I was like, I just don't want to be here. And I was just like, what am I doing? And that for me was a huge tell. I was like, this is weird. I should not be feeling this. Like, and it was one of the biggest tournaments I played. I was playing a great player. I won the first set. I lose the second one in a very tight set. And I'm like, everything's to play for here in the third. Let's go. And I just was like, yeah, whatever.
Wow.
So, it was
You lost
interesting.
the mindset on that.
Yeah. And, but, I still look back and use that mindset in everything that I do. Is I now have to find a different thing that gets me motivated and going. Now I go back and play. I actually enjoy it. I'm like, it's a
Yeah.
different.
No, I know what you mean. It's my undergrad and all growing up was in music. So I was a pianist, and when I was on stage having to perform or anything, but then when I chose to set that aside and I stepped away from the very academic part of it, it became a joy, and I could sit and I could play, and it was a very, very different experience. A
Absolutely.
very different experience, and it allowed my mindset to shift from something that like I kind of had to do to
Mm.
something that I wanted to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go through that. And then funny enough, the majority of my tennis friends growing up, they had that. And they would be almost burnt out. And so they would find that, they pushed themselves so hard for so many years and put so much pressure on themselves and like, oh, they have to win this, that they fell out of love with the actual game. Whereas myself, I still absolutely love the game. I still play a lot.
Mhm.
Um, I think yeah, that's part of it is because I felt like I maximized what
Maxed
was
it.
there.
Yes.
But also I just felt like I just loved it. And some people were just very good at this is another thing. Some people are very good at things and
Mhm.
just and it
Yeah.
becomes their profession, but they don't actually like it, but they're just naturally
Yeah,
very
they
good.
fall into it.
And then there's other people that absolutely love it, and
Mm.
they're not very good, but they maximize their potential, which is it's interesting to see that, and I've seen that a lot on the tennis. There's plenty of people there that you're like, how have they got to where they've got? And just because they love it and work hard. And then there's other
Well,
people
yeah.
which literally don't even want to be there, but they're just naturally so gifted. They do just as well. But I think that's the same in lots of things in life.
And the mindset kind of follows that, right? Because if you love something, you're willing to push and put up with a lot rather than something
Absolutely.
that is just handed to you more as a gift.
I mean, there's a great book out there for your listeners as well. Is that Brad Gilbert, who's a tennis coach. He wrote a book called Winning Ugly, and he it's a great book because it just talks about how to get to these working hard, and you might not have all the great tools. He was a great example of it. He didn't have a very good game technically, but the guy was just a mental beast, and he would beat
Mhm.
people in that regard.
Not being an athlete, I've heard it so much of it is like a mental game for
Yeah,
athletes. But the
yeah, yeah.
older I get and the more work that I go down, it that applies to everything in life. It is a
No,
mental game. Earlier that you can like truly understand that, it's like life begins to change for you. But
absolutely. I mean, this is why psychology is so important, right? And I think we take some things for granted and don't really, or I say granted, we look into things and we don't actually express ourselves enough, and we just keep it very internal. And actually, just by speaking and just voicing yourself, like
Mhm.
I've learned that from just sports psychology when I was playing, and I was just having to have these conversations with my sports psychologist. She'd let me speak, and I'd go off on these tangents, kind of like I am now. No, and
No, you're not.
I'm just like it's like a very freeing, and by able to talk about it, I then was coming up with answers.
Yes.
She wasn't even necessarily telling me anything. I was finding it out. And so I think, so many people don't talk enough about their issues, and I think it's extremely healthy to do it. I really encourage people to about whatever it is that they're struggling with. It doesn't have to be their depression or anything like that. It can be just something as simple as like
Just communicating who you are, right?
communicating, like, I'm not
Yeah.
sure what I want to do this job, or should I do that. Once you start speaking out loud things, it's amazing how many answers you come up with. Yeah, but yeah, going back, yeah, communication, like you said as well, it's just the most important thing within human beings. I think we don't do it enough.
I need to cycle back because you asked me a question and I said I would answer it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What would be on my gravestone? I think it would be definitely my being, living life full out, a life well lived, full of adventure. I want it to be one of those things to where like every single drop of life is like squeezed dry when my time is done.
I I, I'm exactly the same like that, and I think like we're talking about my lifestyle over the last few years. It's very much on the road, and I was having this
Yeah.
discussion with a friend the other day of about materialistic things. It's like, God, you know what? I wouldn't mind getting that watch, and I'm like, actually, why would I want to spend all that money on this watch when actually I could go and do this, do that, have experience,
Yeah.
having those experiences and things rather than things is more important. Giving back and helping people, like I'd rather be doing that.
No, I think it's beautiful, but that's you being in touch, right? Again, with your identity, your being. When we are not as in touch, the influence of others can be really strong, right? And perhaps even in the world that you're in, that more of the high-end modeling and so forth, you're around, I mean, just gorgeous, beautiful brands and artistry is at its finest. And it could be probably, I could see it could be very easy to be like, oh, of course, I want that, I need that. But for you, something else is different for you to put your resources into.
Yeah, I think also, I mean, problem is I do get to work with all these amazing brands, and I then am also extremely lucky. I get given a fair amount of stuff from these big things. So I'm then like, well, I'd rather just
Mm,
have that and then either, use my money to benefit others. And, I feel like I get given so much, I don't
yeah.
like spoiling myself, put it that way. I just doesn't
Mm,
happen. If I spend money on myself, it is for like experiences and going on adventures. But yeah, for the most part, for me, it's like, yeah, experiences and also, yeah, these experiences of like forgiving other
mm,
people. I've flown my brother last year or 2 years ago now to New York, and then we went
mm.
on this amazing safari together, and just
Oh, wow.
being able to give him these experiences, which he doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily get to do. I get to do all these fun things, and I'm like, it's nice to be able to see him enjoy it. And also, I don't get to see him anywhere near as much as I would like. So
Yeah.
to be able to do these things with him has been really nice. So yeah, for me, that's important.
Any of the listeners, go check out Miles Bugby Instagram.
Yeah.
What is it again?
At M Bugby. Yeah.
In Bugby, because you'll get to see his adventures, some of his adventures, his photography, some of the gorgeous, beautiful, free gifts that he gets, and just the work that he does. And I think you are just a beautiful example of this doing a complete pivot in life, but carrying the biggest pieces of you and the essentials of who you are to a completely different piece and making it work, and still throughout this process continuing to reach for that potential that is never reached, but you just keep pulling, pushing for it. And with that in mind, do you have any thoughts at all of where you are going next?
It's a great question. It's a
Or
loaded.
isn't it like, yeah, I mean, it's like too big. But do you see more huge pivots coming, and if they are, do you feel that your approach to it will be very different from since you have all this knowledge?
Yeah. I think, like I said, fundamentally, I'm never going to change, no matter what
Mhm.
happens in my life, how much success I have. The only big things that are going to be happening in the near future, I'm currently waiting for my permanent residency for Australia,
Mm.
which that's going to be a huge thing for me. I feel like I have a bit more of a base
Mm.
out there, which is, I love it. I love Sydney.
Mm.
And then the next thing for me is in kind of writing this. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I've been writing a tennis inspired show, and love to explore
Mm.
that a little bit more and
That would be
see
amazing.
where we can go with that. Ideally, obviously, I want to be a part of that as an actor as
Mhm.
well. I feel like that's the easiest way for me to put myself in that realm, especially at a high level. Yeah, the photography is always going to be there. It's going to constantly do it wherever I go. I take photos, and I just do it because I enjoy it. It's like kind of my little hobby, and it's my quiet time. I go away. Like some people like to go read or something.
Yeah,
Uh, for me, I just like to go and capture things and creating art in a way. And yeah, no, a mixture of things, but
that sounds
uh,
fantastic.
it's going to keep me busy for sure in the foreseeable, and we'll see what happens. But no, it's funny. What I was just thinking as I was talking in the last little piece about success. I just kind of, it's a funny word because what do we see as success? Everyone's different. Again, it's like what I see as success may be completely different to someone else. I I still struggle to figure out what it is. I find that's what is makes me tick,
Mm.
me having a result, being the best in the world at something, seeing it successful. Some people see it as making heaps of money,
Yes.
successful. I have to go back to really just being what's successful for me is I feel it's more how I feel. if I'm happy with what
Yes,
I'm doing and I'm enjoying it,
absolutely.
that's for me it's a success. And I feel then from that point, you're going to have more success.
Absolutely.
That's how I view it because, there's times when you're not happy doing something and you're never
Mm,
going to maximize what you're trying to achieve if you're miserable. And life's too short. Be happy. And I really understand that some people, you know, have don't necessarily have as much many choices and things in their mind, but you know,
yes.
the thing in their mind, they're like, you know what? I don't have these things. You can do
Yep.
anything you want. You really can. And I think people just will be surprised at, what you
Mm,
can do. So yeah, for me, I just always recommend people trying to find things that make them happy, stay in things that you're not enjoying.
mhm.
And from having that and being happy, then you're just going to build more and more success.
Yeah, and if I could piggyback, thank you for bringing that up because it is really such a big piece of identity, right? Is like the
Success.
success piece. I feel like I was very much in that doing like what I accomplished, and that was success. And it's really switching over to how do I feel success? I can feel it every single moment of every day if I choose. And there was a thought that was kind of implanted in my mind not long ago. Like this very moment, I'm sitting with you, Miles, on this podcast. What if this were the best moment of my life?
Right.
And then when you ask yourself that, I can be like, I'm sitting in an office that I love. Good things come out of this. I'm having a great conversation with someone who is very interesting and is a good human. And I have two wonderful boys and achieving success in this moment just
Yeah.
by being. You said it's like when you're able to acknowledge the success and see it moment to moment, it just continues to grow.
And I also do, again, to piggyback off you, I important to have goals and and
Mhm.
vision because, you need
Absolutely.
things to kind of gravitate to and achieve. When you do achieve them, it makes you feel great.
It's
But
gratitude, right? That you're there.
like, look, this is amazing. I've done that. But the one thing I've found is, again, for me, again, it's not for everyone. Some people are very happy with, oh, they've got somewhere and that's it. They're happy. They'll go
Mm.
on cruise control and live
Yeah.
their life. I've I have an issue with that for me. It's like, oh, I've done that. Okay, well,
Yeah.
ah, that wasn't so great. Now, what's next? And I sometimes have to pinch myself and be like, you know what? 5 years ago when I thought,
Yes.
I wanted this so badly, and I've now achieved it. You have to, I have to give myself a little bit of a pat on the back and be like, look, you've done that. It's great. So now, and like you said, give yourself
Enjoy
that
it.
gratitude because
Mm.
we can find that we don't, and we just are constantly pushing. Life is so fast. I think, yeah, we need to really take those moments, like you said, be in the moment, here and now.
Mm.
That's another. I could go on and on here with the here and now.
Isn't
If we
that
don't
so true?
take care of, what's going on now, then, there is no future. But if we
Mhm.
focus too much on the past, again, there's not
Yep.
going to be or the future because we're not in the moment. Yeah, I think that's the other bit of advice for me. I would always say is like just be in the here and now. It's the most important thing, and I've always done that with again, that's come from tennis.
Even you may not have reached your potential in the tennis, but
Yeah,
what tennis taught you
yeah.
is allowing you to go higher and higher and higher and achieve in all these areas of your life, right? The lessons that you've learned.
The tennis is one of those sports, so because it's so up and down, I mean, you can lose a lot of. One famous quote was with Federer, and he went and did that talk at I can't remember which university it was now, but he did this amazing talk, and he was talking about how the guy's like one of the greatest of all times, and he'd
Mm.
talk about in a match he would lose, something like 49% of the points. So that means he only wins 51% of the points in this match, but that's just how close, tennis can be.
Yes, yes.
about winning the right point. You can lose a tennis match and have lost more points than you've won. You can win it. So, which is crazy as well. I think it teaches you a lot of the ups and downs, dealing with the highs, dealing with the lows. Again, in tennis, I could have a terrible tournament one week, and then you're constantly chasing that one good week, and it can change your career. Same thing with what I'm doing now. You know, one good job could change everything. So you
Mm.
kind of, I've been able to adapt that and follow that way of life.
Such the important key for like everything that
Mm.
we've talked about today is it comes down to you. You create your life. You can sit and you can blame circumstances, you can blame parents, you can blame teachers, you can blame, but it is ultimately you, what you choose to do with it. You took that ownership over yourself. But it's rising up and realizing that ownership over self of like, I'm the only one who can move forward. I am the only one who can work on my mindset. I am the only one who, and it's just, and it's you. And I feel like when you realize that, the world does open up because it's like, oh, I don't have to wait on anyone. I don't have to wait for permission. I don't have to wait for something to heal. I can start choosing like literally right in this moment. Like when you're saying being very present in the moment,
Absolutely.
it, it's like right at this moment, I can choose to be the happiest that I've ever been and set the most amazing, wild, crazy goal for 5 years from now in this moment.
That- It's completely that. It all starts with us, right?
Mm,
And if you with whatever you do, I think
mhm.
if we don't, like you said, if we don't like look at ourselves and give ourselves that motivation, then you're in trouble. I think you need to be able to do that, but also you've got to be open to accepting help as well, because a lot of people just think, "Oh, I've got to do everything on my own. I can't do this," and they get
Yes,
overwhelmed. But it's okay to lean on other people as well. It still comes from you. You have to be like okay to
your
sometimes
choice, right?
follow, yeah, it's that choice
Yeah.
and swallow that ego and be like, okay, I need that help. I think that's okay. There's a lot of people that I speak to, they're like, oh, I can't do this on my own. I'm like, that's okay, well, talk to me. What can I help you with? Let's
Yeah.
do this. Whatever. So I think yeah, have those conversations and speak well, and because that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is just
Conversations, right?
having these conversations.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and it gives you more ideas, and also by speaking it through with someone can sometimes give you more motivation. There's things I've sat on for ages and I'm just like, so it gets
Yeah.
overwhelming. I don't know, and then I go speak about it, and
Yeah.
people get excited about it. For
And
example, like
yes.
this
Yeah.
tennis show, I'm trying to do. This is a great example for me. That's one thing that has been,
You just rolling around in your head
yeah,
forever.
moving around. It's been weighing on me, but I've talked to people about it, love it, and then it gives me more, and then
That's
I'll
awesome.
sit down and do some more on it, and then I actually literally today spoke to my friend I'm staying with here in LA. He was giving me some very exciting, you know, news and conversation about it, and just giving
Wonderful.
me a little bit more of like, huh, okay, maybe we can get this done. You just never know.
It was you deciding that you needed to do something and talk to someone. You,
Exactly.
you you didn't just sit there and wait for people to come and talk with you, and then if they didn't come and talk with you, you're
Yeah.
like, oh man, it's not a good idea. It was you taking that ownership.
No, for sure.
We hear so much about like just believe in yourself. It sounds very pie in the sky and it can sound very, very fairy tale like.
It's again another thing for me, which I've really got into over the last few years is manifesting. It's again just a positive mindset, and just
Absolutely.
really when you're going through that, really believing it, feeling it, and envisioning it. It's just a really good reinforcement of things to come. Put yourself in that mindset. A lot of good things can come. People that say to me, "Oh, yeah, I don't know," I'm just like, what's there to lose? Generally, the people that are saying that to me, they're manifesting negatively anyway. They're already like, I don't know, I can't do. They're manifesting in a negative way. It's I can't do that. It's never going to happen. Well,
Yeah.
now change that mentality into something else. It'll be a surprising will change for them. And
Mm.
just their general being. Like, you
You
know,
just feel better,
weight
right?
off weight off your shoulders. You're like, oh yeah, I feel good about this. I can do this. And it's not a hard thing to do. And
Mm.
if you find yourself doubting, be like, no, no, I can do this. You know, you've got to have that mindset. And I'd like to think that since I've done that, I've definitely had a hell of a lot more success since
Yeah.
I've really flipped that switch for me.
It's such a great conversation, great getting to know you better. And I know that without a doubt, there is something that has been said that will speak to whoever listens to this. So thank you.
Thank you so much.